Hi everybody and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sarah Botterill and I am the Marketing Manager for AbilityNet. I'm here to host today and just to give a brief intro in a second. We'll kick off very shortly, but we'll just allow a few minutes for everybody to come in through the virtual doors. I'll just keep an eye on the numbers of participants. We've had a great number of people join today and we're really delighted to have you here. The aim for today is to give you an overview and an introduction to some fantastic organisations that are helping to get people who are digitally excluded online. We'll aim to give as much practical information as we possibly can. So let me just check numbers. There's a few people still coming in. As soon as those start to level off, I will do some fuller introductions, but just while we're waiting, as you can see, we've got Good Things Foundations here. Delighted to welcome Rob, and we'll meet him shortly. John, who is Digital Inclusion Project Manager from Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Fantastic case study of what can be done when people are passionate and work in partnership together. We have our own Chris Grant, who is Community Relationship Officer. And my colleague Kelly, other colleague Kelly, is in the background driving the slides and helping me out. And I can see we've also been joined by Alex. Hi, Alex. Hi. Who has recently had a promotion as one of our disability consultants at AbilityNet, but has also spent many years working on our helpline and giving out practical advice to people looking for devices and support. So it's really fantastic to have him here as well. So we are over the 100 mark and just starting to level out slightly in terms of attendees. So without further ado, kick off the formal presentation. And if we can go on to the next slide, please, Kelly. So just a brief bit of housekeeping. We are using the Zoom captions today. If you can't see them, hopefully you can. There is a CC button in the middle of your screen. If you just click on that, then you should see captions and a live transcript pop up for you. We prefer to use the Q&A window for questions, and that could be questions for the panelists or any tech questions that you've got. The main reason we prefer to use the Q&A window is that the chat window can talk noisily for people who are using a screen reader, so it's not best in terms of accessibility. And after the webinar, we'll be making all of these slides available online, a transcript and a recording, and you'll get an email which will give you details of where to find all of that, and also a follow-up email for feedback for ourselves about the webinar. Please do fill that in. We do look at those comments and how people rate the webinar, and we take that very seriously. Thanks, Kelly. So I've briefly introduced the panelists, but I think it's much better if they introduce themselves. So we'll go in order on the screen. So Rob, if you'd like to just say a quick hi and tell us where you're from and kind of why you're here today.
Hi everyone, so I'm Rob Shapiro. I'm a partnership and fundraising manager at Good Things Foundation. We work nationally, but I'm based in just near Sheffield. And today, really interested in digital inclusion, but we're going to focus a little bit on the landscape, but also a little bit on data poverty, what it means, and some of the latest schemes and initiatives that are available.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rob. John, over to you.
Thank you, Sarah, and hi everybody. My name's John Duncan. I'm the Digital Inclusion Programme Manager at Greater Manchester Combined Authority. I'm actually with the Combined Authority on a secondment from Virgin Media O2 for a year. So I'm supporting the team in Greater Manchester on all things digital inclusion and supporting with the Mayor's agenda for change and how we can attack digital inclusion. So it's great to be here and looking forward to sharing some case studies and an overview of some of the work that we're doing in collaboration with some great organisations, including AbilityNet and the Good Things Foundation.
Fantastic. Chris, do you want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, afternoon all. My name is Chris. I'm the Community Relationship Officer based in Invergordon in the Highlands. I cover the north of the UK and looking forward to speaking to you alongside Rob and John this afternoon.
Fantastic. And Alex, do you want to just say a quick hello? Because when we come to the Q&A, I know we'll be talking to you quite a bit.
Sure. So my name is Alex Barker. I am currently the Advice and Information Officer for AbilityNet, soon to move into a duty consultant role. I've been working on the helpline for more years than I come to care to remember. And one of the things that always surprises me is that there are a lot of IT devices out there, but some people find it really, really difficult to actually fund both computers and iPads, and more especially broadband access. So, and I'm here to try and answer any questions that might come up from this webinar.
Brilliant.
And
thanks, Alex. That's fantastic.
And to learn something myself.
Brilliant, Alex. All right, Kelly, next slide, please. So in terms of a brief agenda, I'll be giving a brief overview of AbilityNet we're hosting today. And then after that, I'll be swiftly moving on and leaving things to our fantastic panel. So Rob will introduce Good Things Foundation. As he said, there's a couple of areas he's going to focus on here in terms of what is the scale of the digital divide, and then some very practical information about online centres network and more. There's some information about, you know, what can happen when people come together and really focus on this stuff from in our involvement in the Digital Lifeline emergency response. So Rob and Chris will both talk about that. And then Rob will talk about the National Data Bank, which is a real practical solution to some of the challenges that people are facing. And then John, as we said, will be giving an overview of what can happen when communities come together, particularly with strong leadership. I know there's, as you say, some really good, strong backing there from the Mayor's Office. And I think that leadership piece is important as well. So if we move on, Kelly, thanks. So in terms of AbilityNet services, we are a pan-disability charity who support disabled and older people in terms of accessing the digital world. As it says on the slide, we believe in a digital world that is accessible to everyone. And for the purposes of today's webinar, we'll probably be focusing on the support that we give to individuals at home. So we have a network of now over 350 volunteers who are an amazing army of people who give up their time and offer practical training and advice to people about how to make the most of their devices, how to adapt them if they've got particular things that they need to do with the technology that they have. We also have a number of online tools. So My Computer My Way, if you haven't come across it, please do put that into a search engine. Is a vast database of how to adapt different devices on different operating systems, everything from a desktop computer to a smartphone. And there's practical guidance on how to do that on there. We also offer a range of free fact sheets on specific conditions and impairments on particular devices. So if you're looking for an alternative keyboard or mouse, we've got guidance on that as well. And you'll also find those on our website. And there are some links at the end of the presentation which will signpost you to some of this. Just briefly, some of the other services that we provide, we also support students in education. We support higher education establishments as well, who are looking to focus on accessibility. We have a range of workplace services, including how to make reasonable adjustments, whether you're an employee or an employer. And then the other side of our charity, we offer consultancy as well to companies that are looking to make sure that their websites or apps are accessible. And then we also run TechShare Pro, which is the UK's largest technology meetup. That's an annual event that we run, bringing people together, again, convening people so that they can engage in best practice. So if we move on to the next slide, please, Kelly. Chris, I am going to hand over to you, and at this point disappear just briefly, and I'll hand you over to Chris and the rest of the panelists.
Thank you, Sarah. So yes, as Sarah says, that there's been lots of great tablet support schemes throughout the UK, and particularly during the pandemic, we've seen an emerging need of technology required because, let's take it, that everyone's been at home, but there have been organisations kind of stepped to the mark, and we've got these four. We picked out four. There's so many great schemes out there, but we've picked out these four in particular for this afternoon. I'm only going to touch on two of them, but as you get the slide decks, I'd encourage you to have a look at all four, and certainly other things on the website. So the first one of that is the NHS Camden and Islington Foundation Trust, and it's been great to work with the team there. And we've been supporting people who are digitally excluded. So they identify 20 users through the traumatic stress clinic online during COVID-19. And as it will say on the website, when you go onto the story, that the clinical psychologist Julie Gillard had said that it was a huge problem with 22% of the UK population lacking the digital skills needed for everyday life. And we see that as an organisation. We're talking to people on the helpline, they phone up and they say they are struggling with that tech, but you've got to get over the first obstacle first of all to get them the technology, then address the skill set, and it all marries up quite nicely. And then the second one there I've picked out from the list is the COMP devices, and I know I'm just seeing several names on the chat this afternoon that I do know that have rolled out COMP throughout the communities. And COMP, again, fantastic device, working the side with no isolation. It's a one-button computer that simply does everything. You switch it on and away it goes. There's no mouse, keyboard, anything needed. And it sometimes removes that loneliness, because when someone gets a piece of technology for the very first time, we go, wow, what buttons do we press or what do we not press? And I think that's what puts people off using technology, because it's not too complicated. At the same time, you and I might think, yeah, that's nice and easy to do. But actually, someone that is receiving a device for the first time, or someone's receiving a device that they've not used in a very long time, sadly will look at the device once and put it in a drawer and go, I won't look at it. Where the COMP device itself is, as I say, is a one-button computer. And it really, as it says on the tin, designed for those who grew up before the technological age and have no experience on using a smartphone. The good thing, I suppose, too about it is that, say, for example, if someone's isolating, and we saw this particular during the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, back in 2020, where people were afraid to come out from the house. So say if someone was out walking their dog or something was nice, it's a nice easy option if you had the app on the phone, for a family member to send directly a picture of what they were doing in that area, whether it's a lovely scenic photo or seeing grandkids or something like that, nice and easy, because we just take into consideration that we send a photo nice and easily through WhatsApp and things, but again, the COMP device takes that pressure away. And then, like I say, the last two ones I'll just touch very briefly on the fourth one, the partnering with Age UK in Wiltshire through their Click and Connect project. So our volunteers have been really busy in Wiltshire and providing support as Age UK received devices in Wiltshire, where we were able to provide the technical support and familiarisation of the device to enable them to move forward. On that note, I'll pass across to Rob.
Hi everyone, and thanks for inviting me today. For those of you that don't know, just a bit about Good Things Foundation. We're a digital inclusion charity. We advocate for digital inclusion. We develop programs to support people with access to skills, to getting online. And we work with thousands of community organisations, specialist charities across the UK. And we support socially excluded people to improve their lives through digital, and digital technology and community action is at the heart of everything that we do. So I'm just going to do a quick tour of the digital exclusion landscape, and just sort of touch on some of the initiatives that have happened recently and that are taking place at this moment in time. So just to touch on, right, what is the digital divide? So it's the gap between people who can benefit from digital technology and the internet and those who can't. And it's really driven by sort of three key things. So it's lack of access to a device, connectivity and affordable data, lack of the basic digital skills. And what do I mean by that? It's things like how to use an email, how to fill out a form, using public services online, shopping online, like Chris touched upon, really, the things that we sort of take for granted. It's not, these are the very basics, and this is what we're really focusing on. And then the final one, and one of the key ones, is really a lack of motivation to use the internet. Or there's other related barriers. So people who have never seen the benefits of going online, they've managed without somehow, especially through this pandemic. And then there's a fear of going online and a real lack of confidence. So digital exclusion, it follows similar lines to social exclusion, with low income, low educational attainment, and those in poorer communities more likely to be non or limited users. So there is a preconception that older people are more likely to have no or fewer digital skills, but digital exclusion operates across all age boundaries, and it's not just older people. And COVID really exposed the digital divide, particularly when it came to connecting with other people, access to services and things like shopping. Next slide, please. So each year we create a Digital Nation infographic. So it gathers together the statistics about digital inclusion and exclusion in the UK, and they're still really stark. We've done a lot of background and information on this, so I'll share the link afterwards with anybody else that's interested and wants to go into a bit more detail. But I'll come on to a few key themes and stats that you'll be interested in. So why are people not online? So from the research, for people who are digitally excluded, 36% say it's too expensive, so they can't afford to be online. 46% say it's too complicated, so they lack the confidence, or there's concerns around safety and security. And they might, like I said previously, might have a fear of using the internet. There's 37% don't have the right equipment, so lacking a device potentially. And then there's 42% are not interested and don't see a need on being online. So again, it's looking at motivation or the confidence and not being able to see the benefits of being online. So some key stats really when it comes to exclusion in the UK. There's still 1.5 million UK households that don't have internet access at home, and there's around 2 million that struggle to afford the internet and their internet bills. There's about 10 million people who still lack the foundation level digital skills, so not having all of the basics. So I talked about some of the basics there, so using an email, online form. They might be able to do a little bit, but not a lot. And then nearly 15 million have very low levels of digital engagement, so being online at all or in very small amounts. Our blueprint to fix the digital divide, it really focuses on 3 key areas. So the first one being improving digital skills so everyone can use the internet for life and work. Then we believe in a focus on the holistic support in communities, so embedding digital skills support with organisations that are trusted in those local communities. And the third one around providing affordable internet access, but I'd also include devices in that. And we're really encouraged by various approaches to providing devices, and we're also exploring how we support the circular economy by making sure no devices are wasted and to get them into the hands of people that really need them. So to do this, we have a free to join membership network. It's called the Online Centres Network. Online centres, like I mentioned, are trusted places in the community where people facing disadvantage often turn to in a time of crisis. And digital support is often a small part of the holistic support that they offer individuals. So digitally excluded people can be put off by going to a college or structured learning establishment and may prefer to be in a more flexible environment. People who offer the support, they're not IT managers, they're not coders, they're experts in people and supporting people with their needs, and digital is just a small part of that support. Some examples of some of the organisations, so the traditional community centres, specialist charities, and we'll talk a little bit about one of the programmes later on, but also through to housing associations, to libraries. So we call it hyperlocal, so people, organisations that are in the heart of communities and are experts in their communities. Just to summarise that, we design and deliver social change programs in partnership with lots of different organisations, government, and we engage, train and support community organisations, provide funding and access to things like devices and data to put digital inclusion into the social support. So we look to overcome digital exclusion by working with partners to improve digital skills, access, confidence and motivation. Great stuff, thanks. So one of these initiatives was one called Digital Lifeline, and it was an emergency response project getting devices, data and digital skill support to digitally excluded people with learning disabilities, and that was across England and supported by DCMS. We worked in partnership with AbilityNet and the likes of Digital Unite, and also Learning Disability England, and as well as other disability and local charities and community organisations. I think there was around 150 community partners, and they were distributed around 5,500 devices with data, offering both face-to-face and remote support to help people with learning disabilities learn how to use their device safely and confidently. So the devices, data and skills provided through the project was to ensure that the individuals receiving them aren't left on the wrong side of the digital divide, and that they have the chance to benefit from the connection, skills and opportunities that being online can provide. So working with organisations, specialist charities and community organisations, it was vital to the success and impact of the programme. Giving out the devices and data was almost the easy part, but making sure people had the setup and the support was equally vital. And we really valued our partners like AbilityNet and local community partners. And Cafe Leap was a great example of the support, and the brilliant Macy, who learnt about video calling and applied for a job online. So if you get the chance, really check out the video on our website. So I talked about the importance of support and how important partnership is to a program like this. So I'm just going to hand you over to Chris now to talk a little bit more about AbilitiesNet's role in this program.
Yeah, so it was absolutely a privilege to work with the Good Things Foundation and the team to deliver such a vital service across England, where you can see it there on the screen just now. The stats really sing its own praises, and there is a full impact report available on our website at abilitynet.org.uk. And know that there's lots of numbers there, so just touching briefly, so 121 community partners accessing services for just over 2,978 beneficiaries. There was 971 individual beneficiaries, but one of the points I really want to focus on is the assessment part, and it was a real honour speaking to the beneficiaries before sometimes they received advice, just to understand what the barriers might be and what could we do to overcome these barriers. So was it putting in a certain type of app? Was it giving them a special kind of case? Was it giving them a stylus? Did they need headphones because they couldn't hear things properly. It was just absolute fantastic. And I remember speaking to one individual before, and what we did was we did a follow-up assessment with them roughly about between 3 to 4 weeks later. And one beneficiary, I've never seen someone smile so much during the pandemic. He was like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that now. And it was the simple things that you and I could do today with a device. But those who had no access to device, whether it was due to they never really thought about it, or was it really finance was holding them back. And with the DCMS and good things, obviously with them being able to send out these Lenovo tablets, they were absolutely brilliant. But we have to give a shout out to the community partners on the project, because the community partners were the organizations, and I know there's some on the call this afternoon, who really went out their way to support the individuals receiving. And that's where we then provided a little bit more support to them around training. So we gave them training through our team here at AbilityNet, whether it was access on things like Be My Eyes and Seeing AI, so two of the visual support aids that are accessible, or was it certainly something around communication? So was communication holding someone back, or was using tools like action blocks? So again, from that side, it was really, really good. And then I know I touched on the items briefly in the assessments, but one of the parts of the assessor's role was to see, would that beneficiary really kind of need an extra case, for example, one of the tough proof cases, because there was risk of it dropping, because we all know how much screens are these days. They're not cheap things, whether it was providing a stylus because they found tapping the screen too difficult. So I think, as obviously Rob's touched on too, it's about finding the motivation to try and push to get someone online. We can't push and push and push and say you must go online. But if I think we give the skill set and the equipment, it all marries in together. Find an interest or find a hobby that they might like. So from that side, there is so much. Next slide, please. And as I touched on briefly, there is an impact report available on our website at abilitynet.org.uk. And I'm just going to pick out two of these numbers in particular. So isolated, 79% felt less lonely and isolated. And I think we can all agree, we all felt isolated, particularly during the pandemic, because we're all having to stay in and follow the rules. But from our point of view, that, a little something small like a tablet makes such a big impact to someone's life. They can speak to people, they can, we see 76% felt kind of more connected to friends and family because they had that data, because they had that device. They were able to do that more. And I think that I'm going to go back up there. 92% though felt better able to use technology. And I just wonder, you have to think to yourself, without cyber programs, from our point of view, from Digital Lifeline, if Digital Lifeline wasn't around, would these people be online today? Probably not. And I think, with the general support of everyone, we can get everyone online and create this whole digital world accessible to all, as I say in the tin. Thank you. Next slide, please, Kelly. I would just see there again, just touching on one of our other case studies, Jamelia. And she says there, I didn't have anyone visiting and I couldn't see anyone. I got myself in a bit of a mess with things like putting out the rubbish. It was a lot better keeping in touch after I got the tablet. And as I say, when you get comments like that, it gives you that kind of warm feeling that, people are making a difference. And it really is special.
Okay, so I'm just going to touch on the National Data Bank, but before I do that, I just really wanted to just give a bit of an overview on data poverty. So talked about some of the stats earlier. Just going back to them, so there's 1.5 million households with no connectivity, and there's some Citizens Advice research that came out recently that said that 1 in 6 broadband customers So people who are already online are struggling to pay their bills between March 2020 and January 2021. So data poverty it's very real, and I assume that's one of the reasons you're here today. Just give you a quick definition of what it actually means. So it can be defined as an individual, household or communities who cannot afford sufficient private and secure mobile or broadband data to meet their essential needs. And it's really been exacerbated and highlighted by the pandemic, but it's not a new phenomenon. We want to see the end of data poverty and data and connectivity to be affordable for everyone on low incomes and free for anyone on very low incomes. And following a pilot last year, this week sees us scaling the National Data Bank initiative, inviting community organisations and charities to apply. It was developed and supported in partnership with Virgin Media O2 and was created to give people in a time of crisis access to free data, working with community organisations and charities across the UK. We've made a commitment to support around 500,000 people and are really excited to welcome a partnership with Vodafone, and we really value these partnerships to tackling the issue. And I think there was a quick comment on there about some of these initiatives available in Wales. So when I talked about the Online Centres Network, there is access to those in the Wales area. There's also a really good organisation called Wales Co-op doing some good work around digital exclusion, but access to the data bank will be UK wide. But I just want to bring it back to, this isn't the only solution, and it mustn't be seen as a long-term solution, but it's one that's really needed right now. So it'll work also alongside highlighting other initiatives like community Wi-Fi initiatives, social tariffs, but helping to draw awareness to other support or initiatives that are available in this particular area. And we've set up something called the Data Poverty Lab, looking to bring together all the different schemes and ideas to explore further around that. So this is one solution, but it shouldn't be seen as the only particular solution. So organisations can apply to access the National Data Bank through our website, and it's actually opened at 9 o'clock this morning. So if you, there will be links shared with you after this presentation, so time to access that. And just to give you a bit of an overview about how it works, so it's aimed at people. The people who will receive the data through the National Data Bank, they must be over the age of 18. From a low income household, and that includes people that have no access or insufficient access to the internet at home, no or little access when away from home, and also people who can't afford monthly contracts or top-ups. This is really vital, and we're so grateful for the support from Virgin Media O2 to make this happen. And we're equally grateful and encouraged by the likes of Vodafone and other telcos are making strides in tackling the issue. So it's a really big issue and something that we're really passionate about supporting and trying to do something about. I'm going to pass you over to John now.
Thanks so much, Rob, and thank you for the really great overview so far. So yeah, I'm here to sort of represent a bit of sort of the regional picture that's going on. Rob's doing a great job of what's going on nationally around about data inclusion, exclusion, and data poverty. So if you could go to the next slide, please, Kelly. So like I say, we've in Greater Manchester, there's obviously a large population, but we have up to like 1.2 million of our residents who are excluded in one way or another by the means that Rob's already talked about, either accessibility, connectivity, lack of digital skills or motivation to get online. And that's impacting a huge amount of our population. But like it's been said, it's often this is a link here to social inclusion as well. And the fact that people during lockdown have been seeing how desperately important it is to be able to connect with people online. We actually really do believe and passionately believe that digital inclusion is a basic human right, and connectivity is also a basic utility that everybody should have access to. So what we've been doing is we've pulled out a few key figures here. 20% of the population of Greater Manchester live in social housing. And of that amount, that we're talking about 250 odd thousand people there, about 60% of those people are excluded in one way or another. So we need to be able to tackle this, but we want to have a really joined up approach about how we do this, working together with our colleagues on the ground and people in the voluntary sector and a whole range of other organisations. And during this brief update I'm going to give, I'm going to talk about care leavers and a specific group that we're working with. But Kelly, if you could move to the next slide, please. So back in 2021, as part of the Mayor's re-election campaign, so Andy Burnham, when he got re-elected as the Mayor for Greater Manchester, he recognised that there was a real issue around digital poverty. And he set about an agenda pledge to end digital poverty in Greater Manchester by the end of 23-24. Now, the whole reason for the digital inclusion agenda is that it must be based on evidence and getting the research base to make sure that we are making impactful inputs into tackling digital exclusion. And as Rob mentioned before, there's particularly groups that are more likely to be digitally excluded. So we've pulled some work out to make sure that we specifically target these people, and we focused on under 25s, over 75s and disabled people. By recognising this, we also though hope to make sure that we are addressing everybody who may be excluded in one way or another. The key thing about our agenda in Greater Manchester though is all about what has been happening on the ground. It's all about local service delivery. It's about the trusted partners that people will happily engage with, the communities out there who are doing amazing work already. But we're using our voice as Greater Manchester to connect people up, to amplify the messages that are out there, and to make sure that data capture and assessment, we're getting a really, really strong picture of how we can tackle digital inclusion together. Next slide, please. So in Greater Manchester, we've got a number of organisations that we set up, or structures that we set up to make sure that we're attacking digital exclusion. So we established a Digital Inclusion Action Network, which is led and chaired by our Mayor. And this is a regular meeting that we have every month where we help steer the actions that we're going to take, the projects that we're going to work on, which are tackling digital exclusion in those key groups. Now, that group is 25 people from a range of different organisations, from telcos to business, from housing providers, from the charity sector, and disabled groups, and a number of other organisations, including our local authorities. The next group, which is really key to the work that we're doing, is Digital Inclusion Task Force. Now, these are the voluntary sector organisations, charities, businesses, anybody who's got a real interest in digital exclusion and are doing some sort of work and to help address the challenge. And we've coordinated this group and put a structure into place where we meet every 2 months, that we regularly touch via a newsletter, and we have meetings on a one-to-one basis to understand and amplify the great work that these organisations are doing. And I'll come to one of those in a bit, where we're talking about the projects that we're working on. We also have the Greater Manchester Digital Inclusion Locality Leads. So for those who don't know, Greater Manchester is made up of 10 local boroughs, and each one of those boroughs has got a digital inclusion lead in there, who's been funded by money that's come from the adult education budget in Greater Manchester. So recognising that actually by enabling people in digital skills, we can actually make sure that our digital workforce across Greater Manchester is enhanced, and we're helping that economy of Greater Manchester, which has actually been highlighted in our digital blueprint and strategy about empowering people, about making Greater Manchester a great place for people to work from and for attract investment. We also connected with we created the Digital Inclusion National Forum. So my colleague, Bina Puri, who is the lead on digital inclusion for Greater Manchester, we wanted to share our work. So as an approach that we're doing in Greater Manchester, it's what can we share and also learn from other areas across the UK, because this obviously is a national problem, but we would like to share our best practice. And finally, we're also doing our best to sort of lobby governments and help with policy change where we can, to make sure that digital inclusion is embedded into policies across all the departments in Whitehall. Next slide, please. So this is our framework, and basically I don't want to look too deeply into this, but this is helpful for you perhaps to have a look at when you get the slide deck. But I'm just going to focus on activity area 4 of our framework here, and that's all about access to spaces, devices, connectivity and data. So that's specifically one of our key areas that we've got to make sure that we can address in Greater Manchester. And that's how we've looked at some of the projects that we are delivering in the area. So next slide, please, Kelly. So what we have is we've got the Care Leavers Initiative, which I'm going to go a bit more detail on. We have a tech fund, which was set up originally as a response, an emergency response to the COVID-19 outbreak back in March 2020. But actually, how we can continue to do that, where people can get access to devices once they've been donated by partners and organisations and business. So where can we actually make sure that people get that access to these devices? The other thing we're working on is, I mentioned earlier about social housing, and it's a really key thing for us. Well, we're working with major telco communication companies to address the unaffordable connectivity that we have in Greater Manchester by working on a pilot programme where we can see if we can get discounted broadband for those who can afford it, and a safety net of free connectivity for those who can't, who are identified as being digitally excluded by their social housing provider. We've also conducted a discovery, which is sort of bringing out those key challenges around about digital inclusion in Greater Manchester. So we really wanted to focus on what we can do better to support people, and what are those key areas that there's still a gap. What can we as Greater Manchester do to enhance the messages of the great work that's going on out there, or use our input to make sure that there's really big impacts on delivering on digital inclusion. So the one I really want to talk about, though, is the Care Leavers Initiative. Now, we have 4,200 young people in Greater Manchester who are care leavers. And work's been taken place to understand that these people tend to be, or highly likely to be, digitally excluded in one way or another, i.e. they can't afford connectivity, or they don't have connectivity. They're moving into independent living, and they may have some challenges around about access to a device or digital skills to help them get access into education, further education, careers or training. So what we've done is we've partnered with the Good Things Foundation by utilising the National Data Bank, which Rob mentioned, which was with Virgin Media O2. So the idea being is that we've coordinated with the local authority to identify where these care leavers are, understand the need that they have about digital access and digital skills, what would make it really helpful for them to get the benefit of get access to skills and devices and connectivity. But then using the organisations that we have to get in touch with the online centres, so these young people can be identified, get free data for a 6 months period, and then go through the Learn My Way digital program, digital skills program, to enhance them to be then able to go and support them with daily living, access to services and NHS services, for example, or financial services, connecting with their housing provider or their landlords. So making sure that using digital really can make a real massive positive difference for them. So it's been an absolute pleasure to work with National Data Bank, working with Rob and the team at Good Things Foundation. And so it's great to see that on a local level, we're able to support people get that access. And that's just one way we can connect up. So that's a quick overview from me, and on to the next, which I think we're going back to Rob or Sarah.
To me. Hello, everybody. Well, firstly, I just want to say thank you very much to all of the panelists for doing such a great job, and absolutely bang on in terms of time as well, which is fantastic, because it's really important to me that we've got 15 minutes now for some Q&As. I've seen some coming through. Kelly, is there a question in the chat that you can read out? Or I can have a look. Okay, so there's somebody here who is looking to provide, it says, members of the centre with an unlimited and economical data package for more than 100 people. I don't know if the panelists have got any suggestions about how to approach that particular challenge.
Yeah, I can pick that up if you want.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so it sounds like Arsalan, yeah, get in touch with Good Things Foundation, register yourself as an online centre, which will give you the opportunity to apply. Sounds like we might be able to support you with that. Obviously, we'll just take some details from you, but yeah, that's exactly what the data bank is for. So yeah, please feel free to get in touch and we'll explore that further.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And there's a question here from Sharon. It says, many broadband providers have cheaper deals, social tariffs where people on universal credit are eligible, but do not include pension credit. And she's asking why. I'm aware of the universal credit, but I don't know why or anything about that. Is anyone able to pick that up?
I can comment if you want. So I can't answer the question as such, but I have got a vehicle to raise this issue. So like I mentioned, we have the Data Poverty Lab. It's just research into data poverty, but it also feeds into government as well, and as telcos. So I can't answer that question now, Sharon, but I think that's a really valid question, and a really interesting challenge that I'm more than happy to take away and range. I can't make any promises, but I would like to take it away because it's not something that I've really personally have come across. So I'd like to raise it with the team to raise it further. So thanks for that, Sharon.
So Sharon,
also, can I come in as well, Sarah? Because I can sort of come in from I suppose with my Virgin Media O2 hat on here. We are also, I am aware that there are social tariffs out there, and they do tend to be based on universal credit. I don't know the why the criteria was set as such. I can only speak for perhaps from a Virgin Media's perspective. But what I can say is within Greater Manchester, what we did do is we convened all the major telcos and we had a round table which the mayor chaired. So questions like that were raised and say, what are you doing, telco industry, to address connectivity and the the rates that often that can be seen as a barrier because it's just too expensive, even at the sort of 10 to 15 pound rate that people may be, the social tariffs could be at. There's still a barrier. So we are in regular contact with the telco industry. We are lobbying them to make sure that they are doing better. And that's actually part of why the social housing project is really important, because we're doing a bit of a test here. This is not being done anywhere else in the UK, to say what offer can a provider do that is viable for them to do it, but also is offering a digital inclusive package of support for individuals who may not be able to afford it, or maybe on pension credits or other things. So that is part of the work that we're doing.
Sarah, just to kind of come in on that too, I know BT, for example, of just looking at the criteria just now, so they do include pension credit. So it's the guarantee credit part on the social tariff. So there, I think as John says, there are other telecoms, there is pressure being put on people to look at this all the time. But as I say, there are options out there at the moment, albeit it's just the guarantee side at the moment.
I wonder if I can come in as well. I had already said I'm Alex, and I introduced myself earlier. One of the things that occurs to me is that on our website we have a fact sheet called Funding for an Adaptive Computer System. And there are lots and lots of organisations which are prepared to help with providing hardware. We're talking about providing a computer or an iPad rather than internet access. One of the difficulties that we have is that there doesn't seem to be the support in place for a client to get that extra support to put a funding application together. So I would say to all organisations, if you've got clients who might need funding support, that's great. Please point them towards us. But it would be really, really useful if you then were able to step up. I know everyone's busy, but someone needs to step up within your organisation to help people put a funding application in. Because we're talking about clients with poor, if any, literacy, that they would have difficulties putting together a letter asking for money, and they don't have the the skills to do it. And I do think sometimes organizations are really, really keen to pass them on to someone else and go, you can get funding advice from them. And then they come back and say, but I need help putting a letter together. And I just wanted to make this really clear because I find it upsetting how people tend to get left behind.
So I think there's maybe we'll come on to the questions in the Q&A back to those, but I think the point you're making, Alex, is something about simplicity of applications. I wonder if Rob or John or Chris want to say something about things like the data bank. It's all very well having these schemes in place. Is it difficult to access that support? And if not, how can people specifically get hold of support and for funding for devices and in particular for data? So maybe Rob, start with you on that one.
Yeah, with regards to the data bank itself, we are inviting all range of different organisations, from charities, libraries, community organisations. So as it grows, we're hoping to have a UK-wide coverage. There's always going to be pockets of that that potentially aren't being covered, but and if there are particular people that can't find it, then yes, they're more than welcome to contact us. With regards to devices, there is still an issue with access and devices, and I think we've distributed in the region of 22,000 since the start of the pandemic. What we're looking at, we're continuing to look to access devices as much as possible, but we're looking at how can we feed into the circular economy and draw and feed into organizations or devices that aren't being used, or to get them out to the people that really need it. And there are programs out there and local organizations that are already doing this. A good place to look would be the Restart project or program, which supported by Nominet, which on that website it has a list of refurbishment local organisations, and they connect with local charities, so provide devices that way. And there are other sort of device programs as well, with regards to like the work that Tesco Mobile are doing with Crisis, and they're focusing on people who suffer from homelessness or addiction and things like that. So there are lots of different programs about. I don't know if there's a central place where they all are, but I think the Restart website is a good place to start, especially looking in your locality with regards to getting a device or data. When it comes to the actual application process, we want to make it as simple as possible, which is why we keep it over the age of 18 and people that are in poverty or struggling, so they don't have to jump through hoops to get that, but they would need to sort of identify an organisation that is supporting that. But we are looking to support 500,000 people, so we're expecting a lot of organisations across a lot of different pools of supporting people, and as local as possible to do that.
Yeah, and I think just to echo what Alex is saying, there is a fact sheet on our website which has, because I've noticed in the chat some people asking for specific links. There's a fact sheet on there which talks about organisations that will actually help you access low or free devices. And I know we've got a couple of blogs that are listed in the slide deck, which will signpost you to some of that information as well. I guess the other thing I'd just flag up and maybe ask the question of all of the panelists is that organizations, I think the focus on the data bank is around organizations applying. So if you're an individual, or if you're on the webinar today and you're a carer or know somebody who needs one, it's probably about connecting them first to a local organisation that can then apply to the data bank. So because that is the route, and that's what worked very effectively for Digital Lifeline. But I guess I just wonder, John, you're nodding, whether you can say something about how an individual can just hook into some of these initiatives.
Absolutely. No, it's exactly that point there, Sarah. It's about that local organisation, that local community group. It could be your local library. It could be whoever it might be that you're in contact with. Then it can identify you as somebody who requires that support. And actually on the Care Leavers programme, that's exactly what's happening. And going to the point that was made about making applications easy, it's kind of, we've got the council who, the children's services people who are involved and engaged with that young person. So we know who they are, and they will do the application on their behalf via the online centres to make sure that they get that connection in. So it's that, in this case, we've got the council who are that local organisation who are connected into the online centre, because the council buildings themselves, the libraries and the community centres run by the council, are online centres. So it works really nice and neatly, smoothly into that. Okay, I'm the individual. I'll connect into my, well, in this case, perhaps their personal advisor, the person that they deal with, to their day-to-day from council requirements, and that then connects them into the data bank.
Yeah, so it's about reaching out locally, and I know Good Things Foundations have got a really good local footprint, but also our volunteers. Chris, I think you would echo me in saying if you contact AbilityNet, and that's something that the volunteers would be willing to look for you and see if they can find local community groups. And I know that's certainly what happened in where we worked in the BAME community in Essex. It was a local community group that came to us and said, we've got the devices, we need the support. So please do reach out to us as well. Unfortunately, I've got one eye on the clock and we've got 3 minutes left to go. So Kelly, could I ask you to just bring up the final few slides for me, please? Fantastic. So I'm not intending to read all of these out, but I do just want to reiterate, because I also see a couple of comments about actionable information, which is what I'm sure all the panelists agree this webinar, the focus is on that. So from our perspective, as I said, there's a number there for the free helpline. Do reach out. Alex and the team are really, really willing to help signpost to other organisations, to our fact sheets where you can find more information on this, more free webinars, including some recordings of past events. I talked about My Computer, My Way. Also, I guess along the lines of what you were saying, Rob, we do also have CSR opportunities. So if you happen to be on the webinar and you're a company that's desperate to give away either funding or free devices, then do please get in touch with us. So if you move on from there, Kelly. Also, we offer a variety of training. So have a look at this slide if that's something that you're interested in, and there's a discount code there. In terms of blogs, these list some of the previous initiatives. So again, this is just an example of some of the things that we've done in the past in partnership with people like Good Things Foundation. So if you're a community organisation, you're thinking about how could we make this happen, the same as Rob was saying, please do reach out, have a look at some of the work we've done in the past, and we'd love to hear from you. Next slide. This is a link to all the great regional work that John's doing, and I'm sure equally he'd be very happy to hear from people who want to learn from what they're doing. If you're really passionate and you want to do something in your own community, or there's information on there about how you can learn the lessons from what they're doing. Next slide. And loads of useful links from Good Things Foundation. Yeah, so again, I'm not going to read all of these out, but there's information about the National Data Bank, their own Learn My Way platform, which is fantastic if you're looking to learn skills, where to find the online centres, the infographic that Rob talked us through earlier, and the blueprint to fix the digital divide. So that influencing piece, that's important there, Rob, isn't it? I think about whether, why is it that certain types of credit and what do we need to do to make this change happen? So I think that's the final slide, Kelly, just check. It is. So I think all that remains, as we are pretty much at time, is for me to once again say a massive thank you to the panelists. I hope today has been useful for you. And thanks very much. So I'll end the webinar there. Thanks, everybody. And do get in touch, as we said, and take care and have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.